I will say that a lot of comrades have made my job a lot more easier in highlighting the contradictory nature of the way in which Hopi's affiliation was rejected, and also the fact that you have seen a lot of internal opposition to this rejection of the affiliation. Basically, this motion notes that the reasons given for that rejection of that affiliation were namely untrue and contradictory. I mean, comrades will be familiar with a lot of the reasons that were given. I mean, the initial one was fairly brief. It was simply that the aims and objectives of Hopi conflicted with the aims and objectives of the Stop the War Coalition conflicted with Hopi, which raised some pretty fundamental questions. This was then followed at the Stop the War conference by this excuse that Hopi remained a CPGB front, despite the fact that it retained the affiliation of the CPGB to the Stop the War Coalition. So I mean, you can begin to see some of the the contradictions that are most readily apparent in the reasons that were given for the exclusion of Hopi from the Stop the War. And it's basically kind of I mean, we could spend some time discussing why they're patently untrue. I mean, the fact that we do have a range of speakers here from a range of different organisations. It isn't dominated by any one group. I mean, we include within our supporters people who can you accuse Pilger or Chomsky of being CPGB stooges? I think you can't. As much it's simply not true. As much as I would love them to be communists, but basically it's on this basis that I propose that basically we accept that the reasons given were untrue and contradictory, and on that basis we accept that a lot of them have actually been controversial and unpopular. The fact that we're seeing that Stop the War Coalition activists here today, SWP activists here today, saying that this is frankly ridiculous. It kind of highlights the fact that these steps that have been taken have been unpopular with a layer of Stop the War Coalition activists. And on this basis, I'm kind of forwarding this motion. And it basically says that it moves that we agree that conference believes that essentially what you have is a situation in which an anti-war movement that in any way condemns the Iranian regime is in one way concerning or grasp in the Stop the War Coalition. I mean, that's the logical extension of that politics. And I would suggest that we make that kind of quite readily apparent. But also, on that basis, we kind of resolve to change that, because essentially what we're saying is that we want a Stop the War Coalition that will include within it what we consider to be some fairly basic points. The fact is that to have a group that's calling for an end to imperialist aggression, but also opposing the existing regime in Iran, I mean that should not be excluded from the remit of the Stop the War Coalition. And it's on that basis that this motion resolves that we do a number of things, and we'll do two things basically. And it's urging for those organisations that remain affiliated to Stop the War Coalition to actually advance, or basically to argue against the revoking of Hopi's affiliation, essentially, because we would think that would be, that is entirely counterproductive, and we would say in contradiction to the view that was put forward that we are hoping to build something quite something completely new, unique away from the Stop the War Coalition. Well, we're raising our politics within that forum. And we will say that they are unique politically because we are not, we are principled in that sense. So I would argue, this motion basically argues for those already affiliated to kind of link up and call for call for Hopi to be affiliated essentially, or to have its revoked affiliation kind of renewed. And it's on that basis that also it encourages individual members to get involved in the Stop the War Coalition, to raise that point where and whenever possible, really. So that's basically the motion.
Okay, thanks.